Okay, everybody, I am so excited today because I am joined by Ian Harding, aka Eddie, in Long Slow Exhale, which is coming to Spectrum April 4th. Ian, how you doing today, man?
Good. How are you, Steve?
Good. Are you very selective about what parts you take, and what was specific about this role that kind of reeled you in?
I always try and do if you can. Sometimes as an actor, you take what you get, and but I was so lucky with this that like this was something that I was drawn to as well as intimidated by. Where I wasn't quite sure where he stood on certain things, and I knew that it was a sort of a complex issue, and I think that the show handles it with a very sort of sticky and taboo subject, but a pertinent one and one that needs to be spoken about. But it handles it with grace and manages to make compelling television as well as something that is entertaining and sexy at the same time. And so that that I really loved, and I also knew that I'd be working with Rose and Josh, and that was something that I wanted to do. So it was kind of, in many ways, it was pretty much a dream job.
Yeah, and you do great with it, and it's cool because the character of Eddie, he's very mysterious. So I'm wondering with that, when you're approaching that part, do you have to know all these secrets in his head that we don't know as an audience yet to pull that off? Or can you kind of, fake it a bit?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, sometimes I would love to say that I'm just such a brilliant actor that I've got like this depth. And somebody, there are times where I've watched things in the past, like with my parents or something, like, wow, like what in that moment, like there's something mysterious. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, honestly, I'm trying to remember my lines. Like, so the thing of like I look off into the distance and it's like, ooh, like something's there. And in fact, I'm like, oh shit, what was it? Oh right, yeah. And so no, but I think with Eddie, I wanted to play him. There could be no um seediness or like nothing slimy or slick. He had to be somebody that I think the audience like had to buy, that they like, you almost feel for him. And like
Sure.
to the point where you're like, wait, but how is this happening to him? He's such a nice guy,
Yeah, yeah.
and and so, but and as the story unfolds, like you start to see like how his actions are affecting him, and like and how he got into the situation. And so in many ways, like as an actor, I had to play him as his own sort of victim, which is, Pam was really great in that we would have conversations where whenever as an actor, you have to kind of defend your character, you have to take their side.
Mm,
And
mm.
so there were times where, and especially with this character, I really learned how to do that, where I'm sticking up for a guy who's he's got a lot to answer to. He's got a lot
Yeah.
to sort out. And so I'd be having these conversations like defending myself, and I'm so happy that nobody was standing around with a microphone
Yeah.
because I would say things where I'm like, well, how do you know that she didn't, and you're like,
Right.
can't say that,
Yeah.
because but you have to defend this person. So it was both painful, cathartic, and all of those things at once.
That's a great answer, and it's so interesting how like deep you look into that. And I love what you're talking about defending a character like this, which is so true. And I wonder too, like for the physicality of the part or just the sport layer of this part, are you watching like footage of assistant coaches in real life? Is there anyone that particularly inspired you? Like, is that something in your prep that you actually do?
Yeah, well, I went and met a real life sort of assistant coach for Georgia Tech, a woman named Blanche Alberson, and she was so helpful. But I really just wanted to know, like, all right, so what does game day look like? What does like your daily practice schedule look like? How often are you involved, like with these players, like day to day life? And especially there's something with Eddie that he there's like a lack of awareness, and from the outside I was like, how could he not be aware that some of this might be seen as slightly inappropriate? And then I
Mm.
actually watched footage of people, of like coaches, where like some player will sink like the game winning shot, she'll run off the court and jump into the like into people's arms, and like
Right.
there's definitely like a familial, almost like familial intimacy there, where the line is very blurry. And he's a young coach, he's a handsome coach, and which I realized I just call myself handsome, but like like what a douche. But like you can see how things get confused. And so that was really helpful to talk to her and sort of get a feel for what a team actually, like what that environment is like.
So you got all these things in your mind though when you're doing this part. So my question to you though is when you're on set and I'm pretty sure a basketball fan in real life, if I remember you tweeted about watching a Lakers game and Bucks
Yeah.
game, whatever.
Yeah.
So is it hard to focus? Like, do you want to kind of just go shoot a ball on set, like on court? Like, is that a tough gig distraction wise?
Actually, honestly, the biggest distraction that I had on set was Rose Rollins because
Okay.
because we had worked together years ago on this thing, and she was always like so much fun. And I remember thinking back then, I was like, man, it'd be great to work with her again. But that rarely happens because there's so many actors, so many projects, etc. And lo and behold, this like fell in my lap, and I was like, oh my god, it's Rose Rollins, And so we have like a nice repartee. We make each other laugh, and like it was problematic at times because it'd be like a really like a climactic scene. Like we got to be in it. It's like there are snot and tears and like all this other stuff. And I realized one day, like her chair was like away from mine, and it was very clear that she had purposely separated herself from me. And I was like, oh, did I say something to her? And that was wrong. And she was like, no, I cannot be this happy around
Yeah.
you. Like,
Yeah.
I need to go do that scene,
Yeah.
So that was honestly the biggest distraction was Rose Rollins. So
yeah, it's like you guys like each other too much. That's great. And the other thing too, speaking of, you're talking about just excited about taking on this part, but if
yeah.
you look at like your career trajectory, it's like, Pretty Little Liars is this insanely successful show that you're in, right? And you're such a big part of that show. Was there, like, for you, is there a downside to that though? Like, do you feel like a pressure that you have to live up to that kind of success of a show again? Like, do you crave that now? Is that like,
I don't.
okay.
I'm really good at actually, especially from an actor's perspective, and I feel like I could talk about this for an hour and a half on just this question, but like I guess bullet points is that as an actor, what you want to do is interesting stories and take on interesting roles. The fame side of it has never really appealed to me. I enjoy like job security and occasionally getting like a table at a restaurant that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten unless the hostess had recognized me. But I want I want a lot of success for this show so that the people that I know of, like the blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into it, that's recognized, and that we get like a season 2 and I can hang out with these people again, and but the whole fame side of things is can be a lot. So I'm I don't live in LA or anymore, and that was really helpful. And so I'm great with being, I almost kind of find it a little funny because people will be like, oh my god, wait, are you? And I kind of go like, well, yeah. And they're like, oh my god, I loved you on Vampire Diaries. And I was like, oh, that's not me.
No.
Like, wait, well, who are you? And then you go through that whole thing. And so
Hell yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I hope the best for this show, and I want it to explode and be a huge thing.
Sure. Sure. I mean, look, you have an effect
Yeah.
on people. Like, someone I saw on Twitter had your face tattooed on them. Do you think about that? Like, how do you even process that? Not many people can say that.
That's, it's a crazy thing. I think ultimately, as long as you can kind of use it for good and as much good as you can, and then know that is not you. What people are obsessed with is a character, and that character is writing, or is the writing and the direction of all these people involved, and is the hair and makeup. Certainly the hair and makeup for me. And so it's all of that, and that's what people really fall for. And then it's great when somebody like recognizes you on the street and they're like, oh, are you a person?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I think I'm sweaty and tired and I got bags under my eyes, and it's great.
That's amazing. So my last question for you before you go, what's the ultimate bird you're trying to lay eyes on one day? What's the white whale?
Nice. Actually, I moved to the East Coast, and I don't think I'm going to actually get up to see it, but there's something, there was a stellar sea eagle spotted in Maine. And it's gigantic bird. It makes the bald eagle look like a pigeon. And not to crap on pigeons, but because they crap on everything else. But yeah, I would love to go see that, but I don't think I'm going to get a chance to see it. But great research. Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, I think you will one day, and then your next book's gonna be on it. I can't wait.
Yeah,
Ian,
yeah.
thank you for joining me today. Everybody check out Ian Harding. Just Crush It in Long Slow Exhale, which is on Spectrum on April 4th. Ian, I hope to talk to you in the future one day. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.